Good morning. Welcome to my quilt room and to our second session of quilting. Let me put this quilt down. This is a quilt I've just finished on my long arm that I need to cut, but I'm not going to worry about that right now because I'm with you having a good time, and we need to do some things to get this prep of ours completed so that we can sew our quilt together. Let me show you the last time we were together, we talked about preparing everything, having it all ready to go. I'm sure that you've done a great job of doing those things. And today what we're going to do is we're going to take all of the pieces of our layer cake and we are going to sew these together into rows so that we're starting to actually make our quilt top or the front of our quilt. So let's get started right now. I have 3 rows done, so this is almost half completed, and I quite like the way it looks. So now what I need to do is I need to start taking these down so that I can prepare them and get ready to sew them together. You need to know that I'm very fortunate in that I have a design wall in my studio that's made of felt pieces so that I can pin my pattern up here and play with it, which is really quite nice. However, many years ago when I started quilting, I was planning quilts on the floor, I was planning quilts on my dining room table, I was planning quilts on my bed, just laying pieces out so that I could see what went together. You don't have to have a fancy design wall to have a successful quilt. And so I encourage you to use whatever you have and to play with your fabrics so that you're just liking what comes together and you're getting ready to sew this together. You've noticed up here that I have put row 1 and row 2 so that I'm able to remember what was in a certain row and what comes before and after each of the fabrics. I've got this label. This is row 1. This is row 2, and I'm going to start to pull these off my wall, and when I pull them off the wall I'm going to keep them in the order that they're in. This will be my first piece and I'll sew it to this piece, I'll sew this to this piece, so I'm going to stack it, but on the top of each of these rows I'm going to put which row it was so that I'll remember which place it is in my quilt. So that's what I'm going to do right this minute. And then I'm going to put each of the rows together with a clip so that they're all together and they're easy to manage when I go to my sewing machine. Row 1, here we are. There's my clip to put the fabrics together, and here's the label on top of that. And that's the way I'll continue my quilt as I take it to my sewing machine to put together. So that's just as easy as it can possibly be for you. I wanted to mention one thing about a layer cake that I haven't mentioned before, and that is that all of your edges are pinked. In other words, they've been cut with kind of a zigzag shape. So when you go to sew these together, you need to take that into account, but it's there for a reason. It's so your fabrics don't fray. And you don't need to do anything to wash these or do anything pre-quilt making. You can do your washing and everything afterwards. Here are our rows on our fabric, and we're ready to get going. So let me show you what we need to do to prepare to sew on the sewing machine, okay? The first thing, and I'm going to show this up close to you, that you're going to need is you're going to need a 1/4 inch foot for your sewing machine. That's because we're going to be sewing a 1/4 inch seam or a 1/4 inch straight line down our fabric. If your machine doesn't have markings on it for that 1/4 inch or doesn't have settings for that 1/4 inch, this is a great product that you can use. You put it on your machine, it's tape, you tape it down and you actually follow along the red line as you sew, and you'll be a 1/4 inch on your sewing, and it's very, very helpful. I won't show you on this machine because I don't want it on my machine, but I do have it on another machine that I quite frequently use. But this is a great product if you want those seams to be exactly accurate. This is the best thing that can help you if you don't have markings on your sewing machine. Okay, so let's get started with row 1. I've got row 1, and I took all of my fabrics and I put them in order so that I can sew them. Some people would put these together and they would pin everything. That works really well if that's what you like to do. I don't need to do that. I need one pin in each thing. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting row 1, piece 1 here, and I'm putting row 1, piece 2 on top of it. And I'm matching that edge right there because that's where I'm going to sew. So I'm going to stick a pin in the center of the 2 pieces. Actually, I'm going to have it go this way. And then I'm going to flip that and do the same thing with the next piece. I'm going to put it on top of this and make sure that the edges are very nicely aligned. And then I'm going to also put a pin in that. Now I'm only going to do 3 pieces at a time, and when I sew, I don't always have to have the whole thing laid out like this. I just grab pieces and go from there. So there's my first 3 pieces together, and now I'm taking it to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam just one way. So I'm making a row, but I'm making only a partial row right now. So let me explain a couple things about my sewing machine to you. Every time I start a new project, I do start a new project by putting a new needle in my machine. And this is a sharp needle that I've got in the machine right now. I'd already told you about the foot that I'm going to use, a 1/4 inch foot, so I've got the right foot. I have dialed up on my sewing machine the stitch that I need, which is a straight stitch. It's a piecing stitch. This is a baby lock machine. I have a fresh bobbin in my machine so that I don't have to wind a bobbin as I'm going. And this is the color thread that I've chosen. It's kind of a neutral color thread that I've chosen. This is an Aurifil, nice sewing thread, and I'm ready to go. So let's get started. All right, I have my 2 edges together here. Make sure that your edges are together both and your points are together so that your fabric isn't askew. If you want it to look like a decent size quilt and everything to be uniform, you need to do that. So I've got this on my 1/4 inch marker, and I'm going to start to sew right here on my handy dandy machine. Remember, you're making a 1/4 inch seam. You will have probably a little bit of a tail of of thread that's behind here, but that's fine. We'll clip that later. How do I know I'm making a 1/4 inch? Because on my sewing machine, it has a marking that says 1/4 on it. And I'm just following that line all the way, and make sure that you go all the way to the end and leave a little tail of fabric. So here you can see that I have a little tail of thread. That's so that my seam doesn't come undone. Some people will actually do a back stitch. I don't do a back stitch. I sew off, and then I cut all these off, but I don't cut too close. That makes it so all my seams stay together and my quilt is secure. We're now ready to go to block 3, and the same thing applies here. You're just repeating everything that we've just gone through. So I have block 3 and block 2 ready to put together. Put it under my sewing machine on the 1/4 inch marking. Here we go. Remember, when you get to the end, to keep going straight. Just keep going right off of your fabric. Keep sewing so that you've given yourself a tail that you will cut later on. There's my tail coming. See? There's the tail. Then I cut it off over here on my cutter. So right now, we have 3 pieces. This is number 1, number 2, number 3 for our quilt. And we're on row 1. Now I'm not going to pin anymore. I'm just going to place these and sew as I go. And this is what you're going to do for all 7 rows of your quilt. You're going to sew 6 pieces across, and after that, we'll join the whole thing to make a quilt. But today, all we're going to do is just sew rows. So pick your time, your place, and maybe some nice music to sew by, and just get working. So in our next video, after you have all your rows done, remember there will be 7 rows. We will be putting all of our rows together. And what I'll be showing you how to do is how to press everything, press all of our seams, and get them ready so that our quilt pieces will all come together really nicely to have a 60 by 70 inch really cute lap quilt. So this is what we're going to finish off today. Good luck in this week that's coming up. You ought to be able to accomplish everything that we've done today in a short amount of time. But the biggest thing is you need to be having fun and be feeling like you're creating and that you're making the world a better place. And I just wish you that this week, and I'll see you in our next session, session 3.